Out of stock equals out of business. Welcome to the 2 Cents Podcast. Today we're diving deep into the logistics playbook with my guy, Rodney Leonard, an industry insight heavyweight who's helped keep Coca-Cola, Heineken, Johnson & Johnson, and now Kenvue moving like clockwork. We're going to jump into the deep end of the pool and address why supply chain issues sink brands and how to stay in stock without overstocking and the best logistics hacks for scaling your CPG brands. Rodney, it's good to see you, man. Why don't you give folks some background on you, man? Let them know where you're from and your background.
Absolutely, Reuben. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Rodney Leonard, as Reuben said. I'm from Atlanta, ATLN. So I grew up there, went to college there, and moved away for several years, working with Kraft Foods, Coca-Cola, etc., in logistics and supply chain. Actually did a stint over in China, led their region. And one of the things I learned is no matter where you are in the world, it's all about logistics. So for me, it's really about how do we drive that awareness, how do we drive that excellence in what we do. So happy to be here, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You talked about that. I was just reading this morning Walmart's earnings report, man, and I'm excited. I won't talk a lot about that today.
Yeah.
I won't put on my Walmart vest because people were teasing me about that last episode.
Okay.
But I'll post about that, man. You're right. Logistics and Walmart as an example, Amazon, they're logistics companies, and that's what drives a lot of their success. But we're going to dive in, man. I got some questions for you. I want to get your perspective on this. You and I talked a couple of days ago, and I was giving you your flowers, and I was talking about how some of your team members I ran into, and they were just raving your leadership skills. But for you, what was one of your biggest career unlocks? Like, what was one of the things that you would say was the big thing that really unlocked your career?
I learned this from a leader of mine who displayed it in the negative way, but I remember a phrase is it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmys and the Joes. In other words, it's all about the people, Reuben. It's all about how you engage the people, how you treat people. As a leader, we do the work. We all know the work. I tell my team all the time, guys, we ship cases, whether it's Campbell's soup, whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's product in a box. The real unlock is a high-performing team. That can mean culture, that can mean standard work, that can mean lean principles, but creating a team, Reuben, that really knows what they're doing and loves what they're doing. They feel engaged, they feel impassioned about what they're doing, they feel appreciated for what they're doing. You get the team focused on, and by the way, that includes accountability. So that's just not, I'm a friend. It's about recognition and accountability. So for me, Reuben, it's about the Jimmys and the Joes, not the X's and O's.
Man, listen, I love that phrase. I'm going to steal it, by the way. So if you see it on LinkedIn, don't get mad at me.
I stole it from somebody else too, so have at it.
But you know what, man, I'm going to go off script a little bit, right? Because your answer is spot on. It's about the team. But how do you find that marriage, right? Clearly, you've been very successful in finding the right dance and the right dance partners when you talk about a team. So how do you do that? How do you think about that when you think about building the right team?
Yeah, I will say this. You need people who are capable and willing. So I call it curious and capable. So I look for those traits, Reuben, more so than I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I get it, and we're going to look at that for sure. But what I'm looking for is that mental curiosity. You and I, we were talking before about that drive. Like I'd rather have someone I gotta slow down than somebody I need to speed up. So those are the traits I look for, man. It's just that drive, that curiosity. And by the way, not only are you curious, but you're capable. You can actually go do something about it. Don't just sit over here and wonder, but you actually can say, you know what, let's do a test and learn. Let's try something. Let's do this. Let's do that. So those are the traits that I really look for, because the work is the work, right? If you do it every day, after 6 months,
it's repetitive.
It's rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. You're dropping some nuggets early on here, so we're gonna jump right in, man. So look, Coca-Cola, Heineken, J&J, Kenvue, right? So you've worked with all of the big brands, right? And obviously, supply chain and logistics has always been sexy to you.
Yep.
But why would you say it's arguably the only game in town if you really want to be successful?
Yep. Two things. One is it's not going anywhere. Right?
Never.
Logistics makes the world go round, right? Our economy is based on it. Our ecosystem, our GDP, everything is based on how we import, export, sell, move product around. So that's the first thing. It's a very secure industry. And then the second thing, Ruby, this, the change over the years from a technology perspective. So you can grow, you can learn, you can keep doing things differently. When we say logistics, you're talking transportation, you're talking warehouse, you're talking customer service, you're talking even customer sales in a lot of cases nowadays. So for me, it's all about, it's a very stable industry, and then it's growing, right? Whether it's growing with technology, whether it's growing with scale, it's just a huge opportunity there for folks to grow from a career perspective.
Yeah, you talked about technology, so you're jumping right into my pivot, right? I'm going to switch gears and go to a different segment here.
Okay.
I like to call this segment hype or hope, right? So hype or hope. So I'm going to throw some stuff out at you, and I want you to tell me if it's hype or if it's hope, right?
Okay.
If it's going to be something that is just hype and talk and it's going to phase out, or is it hope? Something we're going to be able to leverage, and I love your perspective on it. Here we go. AI-driven inventory management, rather. AI inventory management, AI-driven.
I'm going to say hope with 4 exclamation points, Rube. 4 exclamation points, hope. This is not, guys, this is real. This is where we're headed. And it's in place now. You know this, Rube. It's happening today. Current state for most companies is you've got all these planners, you've got all these people who are touching the system.
Yes.
And we all know that human element times 45 people, it's going to equal a hodgepodge of outputs. And then all of the downstream implications to mitigate that go along with that. That's reality. We've always thought that's the best we've got. I just came from a Gartner conference, and they talked a lot about the AI capability, and I've seen it firsthand as well. But the future, Rube, is the system has all the data. If you put the right capability on top of that data, I don't need someone to go in and do spreadsheets. It's there. So we gotta embrace it, man. I love a quote that I heard at the Gartner conference. 10% of the jobs will be eliminated or impacted, but 100% will change. We still need people to do work, but I want my people focused on go do this, go do that, not go do this analysis. So I'm going to take a big hope on the AI inventory piece, man. We're working on a project right now to implement that from a planning perspective, and it's just huge. Now the challenge, as you know, is the change management, right? Getting people to embrace letting the system do its thing versus them having their finger in it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, the data is there, right? And all we're trying to do is mitigate the errors and the assumptions, right? Because there's a lot of assumptions through the emotion. So you're right. So I like that. I'm gonna throw another one. This is my favorite one. So I love your perspective here, and I'll tell you why after you respond. Retailer micro fulfillment centers.
Hope, another big hope.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that, Rube, I spend a lot of time visiting our customers. I spend a lot of time with our customers. I mean, big box customers as well as e-commerce customers. And the reason I say hope, Rube, is this. The traditional brick and mortar store is riddled with problems. Theft, labor, cost, inventory. All those things is a constant headwind that we've got to address. And quite frankly, there's no real solution for it because, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people are not going to be wanting to go to the grocery store or whatever it may be. So for me, it's the reality of what's headed. We were in Arkansas with the big customer there, and one of the things they're testing already is a Walmart store that you go to today is going to turn into a full drive up only. You can't go in. It's all micro fulfillment. That store is your online. That's the best you can do. That's the way, and it's working. Quite frankly, a lot of people. But again, it's that change piece of it. So I think micro fulfillment at the brick and mortar is inevitable. That's my opinion.
So I too hope for this one. I had a different view of it, right? So as you think about what's happened over the last 10 years and how malls have begun to shrink and less foot
Yes.
traffic. I envision a day when like a Walmart supercenter would
Yes.
wind up carving out
Yes.
significant portions of space to be mini malls,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
To your point, I see a point where you talk about the theft, right? And really, right, we think about theft of people grabbing twosie threesies, running out the door, but that's
No.
not what's happening, right? People are
No.
running out with baskets and it's being sold 3P on
Yeah.
some of these online
Organized crime.
fulfillment
Yeah.
centers, right? Organized crime, right? And so I envision a day where you're actually vending machining key products
Yes.
that are
Yes.
available for you as you're going out the door
Yep.
while you're doing other shopping, right? And so I want to see how this retail or micro
Yeah.
fulfillment thing kind of maps itself out.
And
I'm
and it's
excited
gonna it's
about
gonna
that.
play out organically too, Rube. I like that point because there's it's going to change. I think what we're saying is it's going to be different than it is
Yes.
today. What that looks like, where it lands, we may have a
Yeah.
combination of both, right? But I think the organizations that start thinking about that now are going to be better off for it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I'm excited about the future of retail. I still monthly do my large grocery trip
Yeah,
because that's my retail therapy, right? And that's when I get a chance to
yeah,
see what's going on. Look, the lock boxes, man, is getting crazy. We knew
yes,
and expected them in drug because of their labor
yeah.
challenges, right? But to see it in big box retailers,
I
I don't
know,
know how brands launch these days if you're in
I
certain
know.
categories with organized crime, right?
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays itself out. Got it, man. Let's switch gears, man,
All right.
to an area that I call buyer be like,
All
right?
right.
So, using a little slang there, and I know you spend a lot of time with customers and retailers having discussions. But talk to me, right? You've talked to a lot of executives over this year and over your career. What do they really expect from brands when it comes to logistics and inventory?
Sure. They expect that perfect sweet spot, Rube, of service, which is fill rate, but also mitigating their inventory costs. So they want the best of both worlds, Ruben. You and I know sometimes you can't have both, right? If you want 100% fill rate, that means more inventory to protect the peaks and valleys that you go through. But increasingly, going back to our conversation with AI and other capabilities, they're looking for that delta to almost get to that true perfect mix of service and inventory. So our buyers are really asking us to partner with them. One strategy that we've implemented, Rube, is we look at their supply chain, our supply chain is one.
Right.
Versus we've got our inventory, we ship it to you, it's your problem.
Right.
So
It's
so
your
we
problem.
kind of trying to blur the lines,
Yeah.
but buyers are looking for both. I mean, we've got right now, Walgreens, they just were bought out by a private equity company, and it's
Yeah.
all about the dollars. It's
Absolutely.
it's not about the bureaucracy, it's not about the organizational levels, it's about the dollars. So they're making business decisions from a dollar perspective, but of course they want the service too. So they want it all, and the companies that can blur the lines and look at the order to fulfillment as one supply chain. And when I say fulfillment, I mean all the way to the shelf, not necessarily delivered to the customer. That's the
Absolutely.
key. But yeah, they're looking for both, man. Inventory carrying costs is becoming a huge play for these organizations because it's, as you know, it's a huge drain on their P&L.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna throw a little monkey wrench, right? The last 120 days or so probably have been absolutely crazy
Yep.
given the tariff roller coaster, right?
Yep.
And so wondering if the conversations have changed any with the buyers, with the retailers, knowing that they may be pulling in inventory to help mitigate some of those costs, so
Yep.
preempting those costs. And as a result, right, I talked about last podcast about the impact or implications to some of the suppliers. So
Right.
curious on if you've had any conversations and if you can share any insider
Sure.
perspective on that.
So this, as you know, this is taking up all the oxygen in the room these days in most supply chain organizations. COOs are knee deep in this stuff. I would tell you, Root, my experience has been over the past few days or weeks is every customer has a different strategy. Some customers are sticking with their script, which is our cost, our inventory cost. We can't afford to buy in more. But then I get another customer who literally says, hey, I'm going to order 60-day, buy up from you. So we're getting everything, Rube. So it
Yeah.
depends on that customer's P&L
Strategy.
and their risk tolerance.
Yes.
There's only so much you can do, right? Most supply chains can't pivot overnight and go from this to that. But
Yeah.
there's a huge variation depending on the company's size, depending on their key, strategies that they're going after. But we literally have companies that are ordering, 60 to 90 days up. We've got some companies who are still saying we're sticking with the script.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. It's again all about what their motive is and what their motivation and who their masters are and how they're trying to manage those relationships. So that's a great
Because
point.
remember, from almost everybody except maybe the container ship owners, costs are going up. It's like everything is getting, there's nobody winning in this scenario per se. So with that in mind, you still got to balance the books, right?
You got to balance the books.
Yeah. How do you
That's a great.
mitigate
That's a great point, right? Me and my buddy always talks about, with the housing crisis that happened a number of years ago. Like nobody wants to lose,
right?
And in this case, it's not about winning or losing. It's about everyone's feeling a similar amount of pain. It's how do you make those adjustments for it?
And
That's a great point.
what's really tricky, Rube, is in this current inflationary environment, the age-old question, well, who pays tariffs? So the retailers are stuck. They're like, oh, do we raise price? Do we just eat it? It's tough. It's a huge P&L Rubik's Cube, if you will. That they've got to
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's a great point. It's a great point. Keeping founders, small brands in mind, right? What would you say is one thing brands should never do when dealing with supply chain challenges?
They should never stop focusing on what pays the bill, which is service. Rube, I'm telling you right now, we went through the pandemic. You and I, we talked about the pandemic where product supply was a big issue. You can control what you could control. But I would say start with service. That is your ticket to entry. Innovation is fun. All the stuff is fun. But if you're not keeping the shelf full for the retailer, this from the time we worked, they don't want to talk about anything else. So service is make sure you can commit on what you are selling to the customer, especially with a new launch. We've got examples in my whole career where we failed new launches. It's embarrassing, right? We've been talking about this for a year. It's time to launch. We don't have enough product. How did that happen?
Yeah. I stole a quote that I love. I'll give him credit now. It was a new head coach at a school that my son is looking at.
Okay.
And he talked about the workout routine for the kids. And he said, look, at the end of the day, your best ability to this team is your availability. Right. Exactly. And so that applies here. I took that note and I've been using it ever since, right? You're spot on, right? The innovation is nice. The marketing and the media is sexy. But if you don't have product that's available, it's all for naught, right? So your best ability is availability.
You're in, and I don't want to oversimplify it because, the supplier, the manufacturer, they've got inventory costs and pressures as well. So I'm not saying the answer is just have inventory, bubbling out of the warehouse. I'm just saying, understand at the end of the day, that's the ultimate success factor when it comes to maximizing your sales and other things. So again, you got to control your inventory as well. But again, going back to your earlier question about AI technology to help you balance it, you got to figure that out.
Got to figure it out. Absolutely. It's where you should put most of your mind capacity, I would say, right? Switching the gears, man, behind the barcode. Man, you worked at Coca-Cola, right? I love Coke. I remember a long time story about Coke and their expansion into countries like Africa, right? Making the product available, right? So talk to the audience about your experience at a legendary company like Coca-Cola and, how they focused on supply chain efficiency.
Absolutely. 12 years at Coke, started as a plant manager in Atlanta, one of the second largest plant in the system. Had a chance to actually go over to China, worked in China for 3 years, leading their supply chain in the APAC region. And one of the things we did, Rube, from a strategy, we called it produce locally, think globally. So what that means is our supply chain was local. So we could procure all of the raw materials, all of the ingredients, everything we need locally. So we had that speed to market. We had that just in time, relatively speaking, approach. As you know, in some manufacturers, 6-month lead time to make a product. So that was the unlock. We were able to make, even in the United States, Georgia, We had manufacturing plants in Georgia, our can manufacturers in Georgia, our bottle manufacturers in Georgia. So we partnered where we could to keep things locally, and that created that ability to weather a lot of the global constraints that may come and go. So what that did for us is gave us that flexibility to be able to meet the demand, flex up. I remember days, Rube, where when I first started with Coke, we would run Coca-Cola for 2 days straight. Then on Wednesday, we run Sprite. On Thursday, we run Diet Coke. On Friday, we run the Tutti Fruities. When I left there, we were running everything every day
Every day.
because the market changed. But we were able to do that because we could pivot, we could
Pivot.
change over, we can go to the next flavor. So that local supply chain ecosystem was a huge advantage for the bottling companies.
Man, that's crazy, man. So I love give me that quote again. Locally, globally.
Make locally, think globally.
Think globally.
So in
Make
other words,
locally, think
you're gonna
globally.
make it in Atlanta, but the
Yeah,
standard is the same across the
it's
world
across the board. I love
because
it.
it's a brand.
I love
So
it.
there's
Yeah,
no elixir and we're gonna do it this way. No, the
yeah.
formula is the formula, but we make it no matter where you are, we make it the same way. But the supply chain was local, but the branding, the marketing, that was
Was
global.
global. One footprint. Love it. What would you say, man, to startup brands? What would you say that they can learn from companies like Coca-Cola, some of these larger players, knowing that they just may lack infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
They just don't have the resources, right? So
yeah.
what would you say to them of how to be successful, knowing that they can't reach some of those higher tiers of success because they just don't have the resourcing? What would be your point of view there?
Um, and that's a very good question, Reuben, because I think our big giant organizations are beginning to think this way too. 2 words: social media.
Mm,
You can get so much publicity, so much advertising. You can get your brand out there. Don't be afraid of social media. Social media is driving the car right now. We
yeah,
can talk about healthcare professionals, endorsements. We can talk about, #1 rated dermatologists, #1 rated dentists. But at the end of the day, you have to go where people are and where they get their information and where they are influenced. So
yeah,
there's a lot of, this, Ruth, there's a lot of startup companies that are doing great because they found their target audience. They know how to get to their target. They know how to keep them engaged. The world of commercials and paper advertising, social media. So it's a relatively cheap
yeah,
cost to entry, but the upside potential is better. Now you got to have good product, right? You got to have
yeah,
something
yeah.
that can stand the test of time, because the last thing you want is to get on social media and everybody saying it's crap. But start with it, as we talked about, availability, good product, but utilize social media, man. It's big.
Man, I love this, right? The logistics and supply chain guru is talking about building a community on social media with
Man,
good
real.
product, man.
And
That's what you
you know where I
get.
got it from, Root? You know where I got it from? My daughter. I was like, I was like, why did you buy that? Why did you buy that? Guess what? Somebody on social media said this works great for me. They look
Yeah.
like her. She respected them. They influenced her,
Oh
i.e.,
man.
influencer. It's real. It's real.
That's crazy, man. Like I got a soon to be 19-year-old man
Yeah.
that's super influenced by TikTok after her first year of college. And there's stuff that I've now bought because she told me it was going viral. So you're absolutely right, man. But that's
Yeah.
what I love about the Two Cents podcast. You get great information from subject matter experts, and they might even drop a nugget on you that you weren't expecting. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
look, brother, I appreciate your time, Rodney, man. That's
Yeah.
all that's all we have for him today, man. This was good. You dropped a ton of nuggets, man. So I got some notes. I'm gonna go back and listen to this before we clean it up. But thanks again, man, for your time. I'm sure the audience appreciates it. Do you have any last words you want to leave the audience with?
I would say for those of you guys in the supply chain industry, and first of all, thank you, Reuben. Reuben and I go back a long way, so he's my boy. Anytime you need me, man, just give me a call. But I would say to those out there in the supply chain world, be curious. Think outside the X's and O's of your craft, because to Reuben's point earlier, it's really what happens after we do our thing, right? We get it to the customer, we get it to the store, but what happens next? So don't be afraid to expand your thinking about why things happen and what happens after the fact, because at the end of the day, we are that middle mile, if you will, right? In terms of the ecosystem of everything that happens. So be curious. Don't be afraid to learn a little bit about something that's not in your sweet spot, because it's going to work out to your advantage for sure.
Awesome, man. As always, Rodney, I appreciate you and I appreciate your support. And with that, man, we'll end it here. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and follow us on all the social media platforms. And with that, me and Brianna will be back to you in another episode. Take care,
Will do.
guys.